Okay, folks, we'll finish up our conversation about Chapter 2 by discussing the idea of trade and finalizing trade. And what we're going to try and accomplish here is demonstrate how, by focusing in on products for which one market member has a comparative advantage and leaving the production of the other product to the other member of the market, both participants may be able to better their position through trade such that they can consume products or produce products beyond both of their PPFs. In other words, get out into the region that we determined early was previously unattainable through their ability to use their own resources. Now, in order to do that, two things really need to happen. First of all, we're going to ask each country to specialize. And in particular, we're going to ask them to specialize in products for which they have a comparative advantage. In other words, products that they produce at a lower opportunity cost than the other member of the market. And that will allow each member then to produce that which they are best at. And then after we produce all of those goods, we're going to engage in trade. So the first part of the analysis is to determine which product should each country specialize in. Now, if you recall, we determine who is better at a particular product by looking at opportunity costs. And so again, the only thing we can do is exchange the manufacture of cars to make trucks or trucks to make cars. And when we did that, we looked at the slope of the relative lines. And in the case of manufacturing trucks, the United States had an opportunity cost evidenced by the slope of the line of negative 0.6, Canada, negative 0.1. And we see from a comparative advantage standpoint, the opportunity cost of producing trucks is lower for the United States than Canada. And therefore, that's the product we're going to ask the United States to specialize in. Make no cars, all trucks. Okay? So, that puts the United States in a category of producing trucks, and we're going to ask Canada then to specialize in that which they're best at. We can say they should just specialize in the other product, but here we can look at it mathematically. Their slope, it costs them one truck for every car, where for the United States, it would essentially have to give up 1.67 cars for every truck they produce. So clearly Canada has the lower, in this case inverse slope, the lower opportunity cost, and a comparative advantage relative to the United States. So we'll ask Canada to specialize in cars. Now, if that's the case, we end up with the United States making $100 trucks, Canada making 80 cars. And then we'll engage in trade. Let's just swap 50% of our production in the United States for 50% of Canada's production. And that would leave the United States with 50 trucks, half of what they produced, and 40 cars, half of what Canada produced. Canada, on the other hand, would have their 40 cars left over, but now they'd have 50 trucks from the United States. So let's take a look where we'd be with respect to the production possibility frontier. For the United States, they would have 50 trucks, which would be all that they produced less the half that they gave to Canada. So we'd be here with 50 trucks, and in return, they would get 40 cars from Canada, which would put the United States right here. Canada, on the other hand, would have the 40 cars left over that they produced, but now what they would have, in addition to that, would be 50 cars that the U.S. produced. They too would reside here. And so what we see is that both countries now are able to produce at levels outside their individual production possibility frontier. Areas that were previously unattainable when they're operating on their own are now attainable because they're working with another partner in the market who is able to evidence a lower opportunity cost for one of the products than the other partner is, and by exchanging that which they're best at for part of the production of the other country, they're able to end up in a more preferable, more advantageous position outside both of their production possibility frontier.